Alright, so people, we've just had Anthony Cacace and Jazza Dickens showdown for the WBA Super Featherweight Championship of the World. Of course, Jazza Dickens coming in was the WBA champion, the defending champion. Anthony Cacace, the former IBF world champion, didn't lose that belt in the ring, instead vacated it. Instead of fighting his Mansourian Sugar Nunes, decided to take on Lee Wood instead for more money, I believe it was. And yeah, this was always an interesting fight on paper. It's two kind of Cinderella men at this point in their career who are kind of peaking late on. Of course, Jazza Dickens with a few upset wins recently, and Anthony Cacace kind of going from being very unknown, just getting a shot on the Fury Usyk undercard against the highly rated Joe Cordina, putting in a surprising performance. Going into that fight, he wasn't seen as a puncher. He then proceeds to kind of blow out Joe Cordina in a very impressive fashion, and then beats Josh Warrington by decision, and then kind of blows out and dominates Lee Wood, and stopping him as well. So going into this fight, it was two men who have kind of late bloomers in their career. Of course, Jazza Dickens being highly experienced, and Anthony Cacace not being as experienced, but being, I think, very underrated by most, and kind of just a victim of how boxing can be sometimes. Sometimes you don't get a spotlight shined on you when you need it to be shone. But he's here now. He's fully arrived on the world scene and doing very, very well for himself. He's on a terrific run of form. And yeah, he won this fight pretty clearly in my eyes. It was very cagey in moments. It was cagey for most of the fight, with a few explosive moments in there. Coming out in round one, I'd say the first few rounds were definitely dictated and won by Jazza Dickens. He was a shorter, more stocky man in there, of course being a southpaw, and due to the lead hand battle with the southpaw orthodox stances, obviously the way in which the angle works, you're not really able to get a jab going if you're the orthodox fighter. Southpaws find it trickier to get the jab going, but they tend to obviously know their way around fighting an orthodox fighter more than an orthodox fighter knows around fighting a southpaw fighter, so usually they're able to find their lead hand and the orthodox fighter isn't. So Anthony Cacace wasn't quite able to dictate the range with the lead hand, so it was kind of Jazza Dickens dictating the range. He was able to close the distance, was landing some good shots, and it was still very cagey, but he was definitely just nicking it. In the fourth round, Cacace kind of had a breakthrough and kind of hurt Jazza Dickens a little bit. No point in this fight was Jazza Dickens majorly hurt. He was just kind of buzzed, I'd say, more than anything. His legs didn't go or anything. Cacace kind of finally found his range and really got going from there. It could have been a lot clearer of a performance, I thought. I kind of felt like if Cacace committed more to his shots, he really would have got him out of there, but I don't really know what made him kind of... I wouldn't say he was tentative, he was throwing, but like I said, the commitment in those shots just wasn't there, and maybe that was because where Jazza Dickens is so experienced and so cagey. He's got a lot of tricks, a big bag full of tricks in there, and kind of stopped Cacace, I believe, from really committing to his shots. But whenever he did commit, that's when he'd have his major successes in the fight, those good spells of success. But I do feel like he could have made this night a lot easier for him. Of course, Jazza Dickens put up some incredible resistance. Where the fight was so cagey, it definitely kept him in there. Of course, being the very experienced and very clever fighter that he is. Jazza Dickens has fought all levels. He's pretty much lost at all levels. He's been knocked out. He's been taken to a decision. This guy's been in there with the likes of Rigondeaux, right? And he's even picked up a few good victories. He's got a victory over Lee Wood. So it's a really good win for Anthony Cacace to become a two-time champion of the world at super featherweight, especially at 37. I definitely felt like if Jazza Dickens, he was going down to the body. This fight is kind of a tale of commitment, right? I felt like Anthony Cacace could have committed more to his shots and maybe not necessarily have gotten Jazza Dickens out of there, despite the fact I do think he's an underrated puncher, but maybe just made it a little bit easier and a little bit clearer for himself. I felt like if Jazza Dickens committed more to the body shots, maybe threw a bit more, some more power shots to the body, that you could have had a chance of slowing Cacace down there, especially when Cacace's success came in the mid rounds and the later rounds of the fight. I felt like he was going down to the body with a lot of straight shots, a lot of jabs to the body specifically. But I felt like if he started looping the shots more and hooking, really sinking in with a backhand, I felt like he really could have got a good foothold in this fight, because he never had a foothold in the fight. Like, he picked up some rounds and he had some rounds early, but even the rounds he won early weren't like he's winning these clearly and he's really stamping in his authority. So yeah, there were definitely some adjustments that could have been made from Jazza Dickens that would have won him the fight, and there definitely were some adjustments from Cacace that could have made it easier and clearer for him. But at the end of the day, he got the job done, and you'd have to say, unfortunately, that's the end for Jazza Dickens, right? You kind of felt like going in, maybe loser leaves town kind of thing. Both men kind of being, Jazza Dickens more specifically, being very long in the tooth, right? Despite being a younger man at 34, you know, he's got 5 defeats on the record. You know what I mean? He's been through it. And Cacace, I felt like there was probably a way back for him if he lost, but he was 37 years of age. It's tricky. Yeah, good fight. Nothing outstanding. An interesting watch, I must say. And I can't wait to see what Cacace does next. Maybe fight Sugar Nunes next. You know, I feel like he's in with a chance there. You know, that was meant to be, that was his mandatory for his IBF title. I wouldn't mind seeing that fight. I think that's an interesting fight. Probably won't happen next, as I don't expect Sugar Nunes to get an immediate title shot, nor really should he. But that's not a fight I'd mind seeing. I don't know. I don't quite know what's next for him, but I'm sure there was some good options in there. Maybe a fight with Ryan Garner next for Cacace, actually. That kind of makes sense. So I think he fought tonight, and I believe he fought at lightweight, but he has campaigned mainly at super featherweight. His last win there was over Reece Belotti, I believe. It was a very good domestic win. You know, he's kind of picked up all titles he can domestically: British, European, Commonwealth. Maybe fucking Cacace versus Ryan Garner at some point later this year. That sounds pretty good to me. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'm not sure if I'll do a video on Arnold Barboza versus Kenneth Sims. I'm not entirely sure I'm going to watch that live. I might just watch it back tomorrow, because I'm not really in the mood to watch any more boxing tonight, but maybe I will. I've got a video coming out next week about Zuffa Boxing, which is a long one, a good one. So I'm probably just going to get to editing that, but yeah, thank you for watching, goodbye.